Good evening. It is so wonderful to see you all tonight. I'm so happy. Makes me so happy. For those of you who are visitors, my name is Jessica Gregory. I'm one of the pastors at this church, and this Women's Advent event has been happening much longer than I've been here, decades. And I'm grateful that you all are here this evening and are participating and are continuing this beautiful tradition, a time in which we can gather as women, as siblings in Christ, and as friends, and step away from the chaos of Advent and just be. Oh, doesn't sound great. All right, friends. Well, we will begin with the lighting of the Advent candles. In just a moment, we will light the candle of hope, a reminder and charge to practice hope in our everyday lives, insisting that small acts can make a difference. In just a moment, we will light a candle of peace, a reminder and charge to practice peace by listening before we speak and saying sorry when we need to, by advocating for justice and caring for our neighbor, by practicing Sabbath and forgiving 70 times 7, by choosing grace over hate and opening the door for each other. There are a million ways to practice peace. We light the candle of peace as a reminder and a charge. There's a little back and forth here. Friends, with God's hope, may we bring hope and peace to a weary world. Amen.
So I was asked to read before the hymn so that we can give Martha a chance to get down here and breathe before she plays for us. So I'm going to read an excerpt from a book called Honest Advent by Scott Erickson, and this will be available. This is a book from the young adult youth section in the library. And as hopefully some of you know, there are some great books in there that are great for any adult, young or old, or anywhere in between. So this specific devotion is called Room. There was no room for them in the inn. That's possibly one of the most excavating reveals of this story, and perhaps the most misunderstood. The word inn is where we get tripped up. Traditional translations have obscured the meaning, but the Greek word kataluma refers more to a guest room than a hotel room. So rather than being turned away from hotels, Joseph found his relative's house crammed with visiting family who were likely there for the census. The couple didn't come face to face with closed doors. They just had to make arrangements in the lower level of the house, which in an ancient setting was also a place that had often housed livestock overnight to protect them from theft or harm. This lacks the theatrical cadence and tension of our modern way of summing up the story, but you can see that Mary and Joseph more likely delivered Jesus at an unplanned family reunion. And yet the writer wants you to know that there was no room for them in the usual place that you would host pregnant family members. Are you telling me that not one cousin, aunt, or uncle was willing to offer their better room to their family member's pregnant wife-to-be? That feels pretty indicting. Something was going on, and I believe no guest room available for them not only alludes to that, but excavates something deeply personal in us as well. We all come from families, and I say this knowing the word family has many different definitions. No matter how wonderful that relational dynamic is, everyone butts up against the expectations that just naturally form in familial relationships from time to time. How you're supposed to act at the dinner table, what job you should have, how successful you should be, what kind of person you should marry, what beliefs you should have, what political party you should support, how you should wear your makeup, whether or not you should get tattoos. In the best light, these expectations occur because people love one another and they want the best for the ones they care for. But we also know that there are love insecure, and part of finding our love security is checking off the list of what I'm doing right in order to have other people's approval. There is a pressure to conform to the group standard of what it looks like to represent this family name. Maybe you've feared, just like I have, that your choices, identity, transformations would influence your family to put out a no vacancy sign at the next gathering. Some of us have made choices in the pursuit of wholeness that there's no turning back from. Some of us have awakened to conclusions about our identity that make loved ones we've known our whole lives uncomfortable or silently distant. Some of us have transformed so much from what we were once that we don't even know how to talk the same way we did back then. It's a weird thing to be a being, to discover, honor, and embody the reality of that beingness that we've been given to be. It's interesting that the way Jesus came into the world didn't please everyone. He didn't come through the traditional way that appeased the family and cultural standards. While it's true that his incarnation was sung by a chorus of angelic hosts, his carnation uncomfortably confronted many societal assumptions as well. And yet, his incarnation was given away. And beloved, your incarnation will be given away too. Your incarnation, the beginning of who you will become, may happen in the small town where no one expects anything like that to be birthed, but it will not go unnoticed by the heavenly hosts. In fact, they may even sing over it. A small group of people, possibly strangers, will witness it and dance a jig because of it. Some elders in your community may see your small incarnation and even whisper a prayer of thanksgiving for witnessing your humble revelation. And later on, in a way that you least expect, international travelers may offer you precious gifts to carry to the next phase of your life. One of the ways we can experience God with us presently is in the empathy that Jesus, Mary, and Joseph have for us as seen through our incarnation emerging in the midst of a family dynamic. The story of Jesus' incarnation did not come without complications, but God provided room. A room, and the giver of your incarnation will provide room for you too. It may not be the one you imagined or the one that pleases everyone, and it may leave you uninvited to a reunion, but it is the incarnation you have been given, and it comes with good news of great joy.
Hi, everybody. So I am not going to do Amazing Peace by Maya Angelou. This is a last minute change. I was so excited when I found that poem last week. I was like practicing, it was so awesome. But you're either gonna have to wait till next year when I'm gonna volunteer for it again, or just go home and Google it because it's really, really cool. So the reason I changed at the last minute yesterday was because a friend of mine sent me a text with a YouTube video, and when I listened to it, it just really touched me. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, this might even be better than Maya Angelou. Coincidentally, yesterday was also the birthday of someone who was really, really close to me and my family when I was growing up. And so close that I called her Mommy Royalty. And when my parents had their first call in a small church in central Illinois, they were new immigrants, and Mommy Royalty and her family really welcomed us in and made us part of their family. And in fact, in a few weeks, over 60 years, I will be going to spend Christmas with the Royalty family. So what made Mommy Royalty so special, and I thought of her yesterday, it was her birthday, I got this video, and our theme for Calling All Angels. And my dad had always called her an angel on this earth. And what I remember, not only did she welcome our family into her family, at Christmas time, you just never knew who would be there. She welcomed everybody. There would be like boyfriends that you would see once and never see again. Once she even invited one of her daughter's ex-husbands who was just really struggling. He was by himself, he was isolated, and we're like, what's he doing here? Mommy Royalty never judged anyone. And that's what I remember the most about her. There was no judgment. And so this song also kind of reminds me of her, and I'm going to ask you to keep her non-judgment in your mind. I know her angel will be with me because I am not a soloist. I like fill in the choir, but I'm not a soloist. But we're just gonna see how this goes. It's a tune you will recognize, and if I can sing it clearly enough, you'll see that there are different words. Come. I'm going to start all over. Come, you unfaithful. Come, all you unworthy. Come, you with nothing to offer him. Come, you unrighteous. Come, you undeserving. Rejoice, he came for you. Rejoice, he came for you. Rejoice, he came for you. Christ the Lord. Come, all you anxious, weary and waiting. Come if your burdens are all you can bring. Weary from silence, questions without answers. Rejoice, he came for you. Rejoice, he came for you. Rejoice, he came for you. Oh, Christ, the Lord is for the broken. His strength is for the weak. hopes for lesser things. His arms are for the lowly, his blood is for the lost, his mercy's ever-reaching, his love is for us all. So come, all you prideful, boasting in your power. Come, if you're trusting in the strength you bring. Come, self-sufficient, and you with all the answers. Rejoice, he came for you. Rejoice, he came for
I read tonight from The Stillness of Winter, a book that a dear friend gave me. Sacred Blessings of the Season, written by Barbara Mahaney, who was a writer for the Chicago Tribune for 3 decades. The opening chapter is called December, Sacred Invitation. There is something about December, all right. I call it gift. It might be my ancient Celtic roots, or maybe it's my monastic inclinations, but give me a gray day, shrouded in mist and peekaboo light. Give me a shadowed nook to slip into, and I will wrap myself in the cloak of utter contentment. It's dark, all right, come December, month of the longest night, when minute by minute our dot on the globe is darkening. Yet darkness to me is alluring. It calls me to turn inside, to be hushed, to pay attention. Mine is a lonely outpost. December, according to most people, is just unbroken darkness. But the way I see it, maybe the saddest thing is that we've blinded ourselves to the darkness, cut ourselves off from the God-given ebb and flow of darkness and light. It's poetry, the rise and the fall of incandescence and shadow, but mostly it's lost on us. The truth is, darkness draws out our deep down depths. Darkness is the womb, the seed underground. Darkness is where birthing begins, the incubator of unseen stirring, essential and fundamental growing. The liturgical calendar, prescriptive in its wisdoms, lights the way. It gives us Advent, season of anticipation, of awaiting, of holding our breath for a spectacular coming, a season of dappling the darkness with candled crescendo. And therein is the sacred instruction for the month: make the light be from you, deep within you. Seize the month, reclaim the days, employ ardent counterculturalism, and do not succumb. December invites us to be our most radiant selves, and we find that radiance deep down in the heart of the darkness. The darkness is our chambered nautilus of prayer, the coiled depths to which we turn in silence to await the still small voice that whispers the original love song, chorus and refrain, inscribed by the one who breathed the first breath. Make room in your heart this blessed December. December, make room where the birthing begins.
I'm going to read a poem by Ariane Brathwaite Lane, who was the woman who did the women's retreat for us last year. It's called A Parent's Advent Prayer. Dear God, I now stop what I'm doing, what I'm scrambling to plan and hustling to finish, so that I can be here. Be here in the safety and warmth of your love. This love that holds me fast and keeps me centered. What I want to be a season of joy for my children so quickly becomes a season of increased expectations for me. Not because they expect things, but because I do. In the pressure I put on myself to make things perfect and memorable and happy and special. But you came to me amidst darkness and stars, reminding me how darkness and light are most beautiful together. And in that holy, mysterious, and messy night, you redefined perfection, promising me that leaning into the mystery and laying down in loving awe compose the most faithful response. You tell me the best gift I can give my children this Christmas is to look with love into their eyes, to pause throughout the day, to pray over them, to envelop them with my arms of fierce grace when I feel most angry and annoyed, to sit in wonder for a moment, or many, and marvel at all that shaped our family this year, and allow tears to fall and dreams to rise, to take my pilgrim band by their hands and walk together deep into the heart of Bethlehem, sharing bright within our souls. This will be more than enough, because you've made a manger in which my heart will rest and find your heartbeat becoming mine. Amen.
one Christmas was so much like the other that I can never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12,
Or 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6.
and there were always presents and uncles at
The
Christmas.
same uncles.
Mistletoe hung from the gas brackets in all the front parlors. There was sherry and walnuts and bottled beer and crackers by the dessert spoons.
And cats in their furabouts watched the fires, and the high heap fire spat, all ready for the chestnuts.
Some few large men sat in the front parlors without their collars.
Uncles almost certainly.
And they were trying their new cigars, coughing, and then holding them out as though they were ready for the explosion.
And some few small aunts, not wanted in the kitchen, sat on the very edges of their chairs, poised and brittle, afraid to break, like faded cups and saucers.
For dinner, we had turkey and blazing pudding. And after dinner, the uncle sat in front of the fire, loosened all buttons, groaned a little, and slept. Uncles.
Mothers, aunts, and sisters scuttled to and fro bearing tureens. Aunt Bessie, who had already been frightened twice by a clockwork mouse, whimpered at the sideboard and had some elderberry wine.
The dog was sick.
Aunt Dozy had to have 3 aspirins.
And Auntie Hannah, who liked port, stood in the middle of the snowbound backyard singing like a big-bosomed thrush. I would go out, my bright new boots squeaking into the white world, onto the seaward hill to call on Jim and Dan and Jack, and to pad through the still streets, leaving huge, deep footprints on the hidden pavements.
I bet people will think there have been hippos.
What would you do if you saw a hippo coming down our street?
I'd go like this, bang, and I'd throw him over the railings and roll him down the hill and tickle him under his ears, and he'd wag his tail.
Well, what would you do if you saw 2 hippos?
Iron-flanked and bellowing he-hippos clanked and battered through the scudding snow towards us as we passed Mr. Daniels' house.
Let's post Mr. Daniels a snowball through his letterbox.
Let's write things in the snow.
Let's write, Mr. Daniel is a spaniel, all over his lawn.
On we walked on the white shore. Can the fishes see it snowing?
And I remember that we went singing carols once when there wasn't the shaving of a moon to light the flying streets. At the end of a long road was a drive that led to a large house, and we stumbled up the darkness of the drive that night, each one of us afraid,
Each one holding a stone in his hand just in case.
and all of us too brave to say a word.
The wind through the trees made noises as of old and unpleasant and maybe web-footed men wheezing in caves.
We reached the black bulk of the house.
What shall we give them? Hark the Herald?
Oh no, Jack said. Good King Wenceslas. I'll count to 3.
1, 2, 3. And we began to sing, our voices high and seemingly distant in the snow-felted darkness round the house that was occupied by nobody we knew.
We stood close together near the dark door.
Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. And then a small, dry voice, like the voice of someone who has not spoken for a very long time, joined our singing. A small, dry, eggshell voice from the other side of the door. A small, dry voice through the keyhole.
Well, the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even.
And when we stopped running, we were outside our house. The front room was lovely, and it was good again.
An uncle was playing the fiddle. A cousin sang Cherry Ripe.
Auntie Hannah, who had gotten onto the parsnip wine, sang a song in which she said her heart was like a bird's nest.
And then everybody laughed again. And I went to bed.
Looking through my bedroom window out into the moonlight and the unending smoke-colored snow,
I could see the lights in the windows of all the other houses on our hill and hear the music rising from them up the long, steady, falling night.
I turned the gas down. I got into bed.
I said some words to the close and holy darkness.
And
And
then
then
I
I
slept.
slept.
I'm reading a poem by Edward Hayes. It's called Christmas Peace. Stillness of falling snow, spreading her white vestment of priestly, princely peace. Upon earth and on soaring trees, jointly arched cathedral-like over a small and humble cabin. Be a holy icon, image of my heart, upon which can softly descend heaven's gift of Christmas peace. Christmas peace comes amidst disorder, noise, and confusion, settling like a hushed snowfall upon our holiday haste and stress. With an awesome sacred power to fill each heart's little house with God's soundless serenity. Come, Christmas peace of Christ, come gently like a midnight snow and settle in my soul.
Howard Thurman was an African-American theologian who wrote prolifically about social and political concerns as well as spiritual life. I'm going to quote some of his words about Christmas that are not his meditative poetry, and then share one of his brief reflections. Thurman writes, "For the Christmas season, we affirm our solidarity with the whole human race in its long struggle to come humane and to reveal divinity in which all humankind shares." Thurman describes Christmas as the brooding presence of the eternal spirit, making the crooked paths straight, rough places smooth, tired hearts refreshed, dead hopes stir with newness of life. It is the promise of tomorrow at the close of every day, the movement of life in defiance of death, and the assurance that love is sturdier than hate, that right is more confident than wrong, that good is more permanent than evil. Now his reflection, which is titled, "Christmas is a Season of the Heart." The time of forgiveness for injuries past, the sacrament of sharing without balancing the deed, the moment of remembrance of graces forgotten, the poem of joy making light the spirit, the sense of renewal restoring the soul, the day of thanksgiving for the goodness of God. Christmas is the season of the heart.
reading a poem by Mary Oliver, who was born in 1935 and just died in 2019 at the age of 83. I chose this poem for a couple of reasons. One is because I love the work of Mary Oliver and her poetry, but not only because of that, but my 17-year-old son, Calvin, has come to really love her poetry as well. And he's taking a philosophy class this year, and as part of his first project of the fall, they were supposed to choose a philosopher, and he wanted to know from his teacher if he could choose Mary Oliver, the poet. So I've enjoyed him enjoying her. And she is a winner of the National Book Award and a Pulitzer Prize. And I think it's fascinating that she decided at age 13 that she wanted to be a poet, along with an archaeologist and an ornithologist. So this is, the other reason why I want to read the poem is because we, for the second year this year, went to choose and cut down our own Christmas tree. And before we cut our tree down, we read this poem to her. So this is called When I Am Amongst the Trees by Mary Oliver. It's from her book Thirst from 2006. When I am among the trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness, I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches. And they call again. "It's simple," they say, "and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine." I could leave it there, but I did find some reflections from some women who are Marquette University faculty. They were asked to reflect, each of them, on one stanza from this poem of Mary Oliver and how her words helped them to see life in new ways. So I chose two of the reflections. The one is a reflection on the second stanza by Dr. Anne M. Pacero, who's a chair and professor of Spanish. She says, "The poet refers to that sensation all of us have every day, that we spend too much valuable time rushing around, answering messages, checking cell phones, making appointments, and generally allowing others to consume our daily hours. We easily forget how fast life goes and how fragile it is. Many daily distractions take us far away from whom we really are, from that core of goodness and spirituality we sense but find elusive. Mary Oliver invites us to linger a while and recover those feelings of hope and joy we carry with us always." And the second reflection is on the fourth stanza and is by Heather James, research and instructional librarian. In the final stanza, the trees again call to the poet with brief but loaded words. Mary Oliver invokes a chorus of nature that is almost audible as the leaves stirring give voice to the trees. What is simple? The purpose to go easy, walking with awareness and soft steps through the world, easy on others and the world as we hope they will be on us, to be filled with light and to shine, to allow the grace, light, warmth, connection that is available all around to touch us, flow through us, then shine out from us to the next. Just as the sunshine through the tree branches may cut and sparkle or warm with a softened glow, there is room to find her own way, our own way, to pass on the light.
This is a poem called Noel by Anne Porter. When snow is shaken from the balsam trees and they're cut down and brought into our houses, when clustered sparks of many-colored fire appear at night in ordinary windows, we hear and sing the customary carols. They bring us ragged miracles and hay and candles and flowering weeds of poetry that are loved all the more because they are so common. But there are carols that carry phrases of the haunting music of the other world, a music wild and dangerous as a prophet's message. Or the fresh truth of children who, though they come to us from our own bodies, are altogether new with their small limbs and bird-like voices. They look at us with their clear eyes and ask the piercing questions God alone can answer.
I'm gonna go with the Wooldridge family to get a tree next year because I brought a fake tree up from the basement while my children wrestled on top of a pile of Legos. All right, I am reading from a book called Bittersweet by Shauna Nyquist, and I'm reading a chapter called Evergreen, but I've excerpted it down a little bit. So, Evergreen. It's the first real snowfall of the year. Fine flakes falling steadily. They're falling fast and straight down, not a hint of wind. It always feels like things are quieter when it's snowing, like the falling of the flakes absorbs the noise, blanketing everything with a hush. I keep remembering little things from last December. I remember that last December I wanted to skip through Christmas, that I didn't even want to go to the parties. All I wanted was a new year. We knew we'd be moving at the end of January, but December just dragged on and on. All I wanted was to get to January, get to the move, get to the future I'd been longing for. Last December, even the sweetest things were weighed down by fear and anxiety and exhaustion. I remember New Year's Eve with the neighbors at the cabin. We laughed and ate guacamole and drank beer margaritas, and in the morning, when we burned the bacon while we were making breakfast together, I almost burst into tears, overwhelmed by something that totally didn't matter. With friends one night, I got my feelings terribly hurt, not because anyone was cruel, but because those days I was so tender and raw that practically everything hurt. I was afraid then that it would always be like that. I was afraid that this was the new normal. The season of lightness and peace were over in my life, and this brittle, fractured way of living would last forever. And then we moved. When I'm being careless, I chalk it all up to the move, but it wasn't just that. It was 1,000 things that had gotten broken along the way as I plodded through a very bleak season, and then 1,000 opportunities put them back together. It was prayer, friendship, rest, writing, patience, discipline. It was gifts I didn't and don't deserve, and also hard choices I made, ones that made me proud of myself for the first time in a long time. I went to a couple different doctors and a therapist. I started writing again and started sleeping well again. I began to pray with more hope and possibility, and little by little, some of the stuck things became unstuck. When things are dark and splintering, I get stuck, believing that it will always be how it is right now, that new life will never come, that change will never really break into my life. But this year is all the proof I need. 1 year ago today, a similarly snowy, lush day, it was all different, and I want to hold this moment like a charm. Remember, remember. The snow is falling on the evergreen tree in our new backyard, and our cozy little house feels warm and safe. I'm wrapped in a blanket that's been dragged to every home we've lived in since we got married. New couch, new view, same old yellow blanket. A candle flickers on the table, and the steam from my tea smells like cloves. We are 1,000,000 miles from last December, and I want to keep this moment with me as a reminder of what can happen in a year. Anything can happen in a year. Broken down, shattered things can be repaired in a year. Hope can grow in a year after a few seasons of lying dormant. I didn't like who I was or how I was living a year ago, but I didn't know any other way to do it. I recognize the face that stares back at me in the mirror these days. When I look into my own eyes, I recognize a person I thought was lost, and I feel whole for the first time in years. I don't know where you are these days, what's broken down and what's beautiful in your life and in this season. I don't know if this is a season of sweetness or one of sadness, but I'm learning that neither lasts forever. There will, I'm sure, be something that invades this current loveliness. That's how life is. It won't be sweet forever, but it won't be bitter forever either. If everywhere you look these days it's wintry, desolate, lonely, practice believing in springtime. It always, always comes, even though on days like today, it's nearly impossible to imagine, ground frozen, trees bare and spiky. There are many SP words. New life will spring from the same ground. This season will end, and something entirely new will follow it. As I look out the window, the snowflakes are bigger now and falling even faster. People are wondering about canceling events for tonight and school closings for tomorrow. That would be just fine with me. I have all that I need right here. This evergreen, this tea, this candle, this December.
will conclude as I began, with heartfelt gratitude to each and every woman here this evening. This night exists because you all are here. My little notes of thanks on the back, I extend those to all of you, and particularly to the fellowship committee and all the cookie bakers. I didn't list you all, but I know that you are multiple, you are many, and it was just so lovely. It was such a great start to a beautiful evening. Thank you. And so hear these words as we depart into the world, we extinguish the candles here so that they live on in our hearts. Women of faith, as you leave this place, you go into a weary world. So speak tenderly. Do the good that is yours to do. Choose connection. Hold on to hope. Practice peace. And remember that Christ took on flesh for you. You are God's beloved. So go rejoicing. The world needs it. Amen.